Good morning, Patriots. This is Mike Cook. I'm getting straight in the chair here. Get my back straight, so I can be proud and talk. This is Mike Cook coming to you live from Cicero, Missouri. I hope you're having a great day. It is approximately 8 a.m. on 12/29 in the year of 2020. The year the conspiracy theory became reality is almost over, and we're rolling into 2021. And what kind of hellhole is that going to be? Who knows? I guess it just depends. Do we have a constitution or not? And that's what I want to talk about today. Lots of happenings in the world, lots of things going on, lots of things happening behind the scenes. We all know it. We all see it. We're all following it. I mean, really, if you're watching me, I'm really just reporting stuff that's confirmation of stuff you've already seen most of the time. But there's some happenings going on the legal side of this that I kind of wanted to cover. Pennsylvania yesterday said that the certification of their delegates was in error. That was the legislatures of the state of Pennsylvania. Now, there's a couple other states doing the same sort of thing. Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia, they're all in the various process of this same thing. And it got me thinking this morning that the media is not covering this, and what they do say about it is either a fictitious lie or maybe not a complete lie, a partial lie. Omitting the truth is a lie. A narrative is a lie. So I want to go back to the basic. Yeah, there's court precedents here and there's law over there. And, these legislatures have delegated their authority to the governor and the secretary of state. They have delegated their authority to a popular vote in their states, and that's a delegating of their authority. That's a decision that the legislatures in the past have made, have set up a system. But constitutionally, there's the Constitution, there's the law. And these laws and these principles set up in the Constitution are not, you can't revoke them on the vote of Congress. That's not the way this works. And I'm gonna lay this out for you. I hope you understand. I hope it makes sense to you what I'm about to try to explain as best as I can. I got to explain it to you, as they say down south. So, first I want to talk about, try to decide which way I want to go with this. Okay. So it says in the Constitution, this is Article 2, paragraph, or whatever it is. I'm totally blowing my mind with it. I've said this a zillion times, and now I'm blowing my mind. The dyslexia is taking over me. I don't say it wrong. It's in the Constitution. It's Article 2. It's in the Constitution. I think it's Section 2, Paragraph 1, or Section 1, Paragraph 2. I don't remember which. But dyslexia is taking over. If somebody knows it, please type it in there. Let people know what it is, because I apologize. I get a lot of things about. Let me back up a little bit. I just want to add this tidbit. Some of you caught that I said January instead of June in my last video, talking about a post that the president made, or maybe it was 2 videos. It doesn't matter. I just want to explain something to you so that you understand when I'm talking where I'm coming from. And sometimes I'll make mistakes that my brain thinks I'm saying one thing, but I'm saying another. I am extremely dyslexic. I mean, I get zeros backwards. That's how bad I am. It's part of that dyslexia is Tuesdays and Thursdays and Thursdays and Tuesdays. I don't know which is which. And also part of that dyslexia is I'll get things mixed up if they're similar, like June and January in abbreviation. So if I make a mistake like that, please correct me. I understand what you're doing. Also, when I described the chemical elements that might possibly had been used in that explosion in Georgia, I said the wrong thing. And I did that kind of on purpose because, well, I don't want to talk about the right thing and give keywords for the government to focus on me. No focus on me. Just, move along, folks. Anyways, the right chemical makeup was mentioned in the comments. If you want to know, go scroll through, read the comments. That other guy said it, not me. Don't look at me. Anyways, I digress. I just want to get that straight so that when I mess things up, like I can't remember if it's paragraph 2, chapter 1, or chapter 2, paragraph, whatever. I know there's some of you guys out there that got that. That's the dyslexia in me getting the numbers all mixed up. I get numbers mixed up. I get letters mixed up. It's terrible. But that's just the way it is. So let me get back to the point. Okay. So It says, this is the Constitution. It says, each state shall appoint in a matter as the legislatures thereof may direct the number of electors equal to the whole part of senators and representatives to which each state may be entitled in Congress. But no senator or representative or person holding office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. Now, basically what that says is that is where the authority of who chooses the electors comes from. There is no higher governing official in the selection of electors than the legislatures. Not the governor, not the Secretary of State, not the Supreme Court in individual states, not the U.S. Supreme Court, not any district judge, not the President of the United States, not Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. Nobody has authority except for the legislatures. Now, they have ruled, passed laws, set up processes to do it the way we do it today. But they can pull that back because there is no other authority. Now, let me explain to you why I say this, why there is no other authority. You see, we have a constitution, and in our constitution, there are rules, regulations. It goes through the first part of the Constitution, sets up our government, it sets up the co-equal branches, it sets up how things have to be done, how the president has to be elected, how the Senate and Congress have to be elected. Of course, we changed the Senate. Well, I think we should change that back, but that's a different conversation. Repeal the 17th Amendment. They set all this up, and they make all this happen, okay? So the Constitution lays out the groundwork. Well, what the Constitution does not do is it does not affect me and you. It does not give us any rights, nor does it take away any of our rights. It limits the government on what they can do. You see, our founding fathers were genius. Yes, I know I just stepped on somebody's toe because I said the Constitution doesn't give us any rights. It does not give us any rights. Barack Obama said the Constitution is a document of negative liberties. What did he mean by that? He meant that it constrains the government on what they're capable of doing to affect people's lives. Now, he thought that the government should be able to, make improvements to your life. Some other people believe the government should just get the hell out of their life. Ronald Reagan said the 9 scariest words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. And it's true. But our Constitution was founded on a principle. It was a principle that was expressed in the Declaration of Independence. And that's this right here. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Now think about that sentence for a second. They're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That means among these, okay, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. Now I want to talk about that for a second. Our Constitution, our government is created by the governed. That's you. They work for us. We're the boss. We're not their worker. Nancy Pelosi always wants to say, we got to take care of the workers. I'm taking care. That contentious video that's going around where Wolf Blitzer is interviewing her, and she's like, I feed them. Let them eat ice cream. Nancy Pelosi, is not your job. You work for us. We dictate to you. You don't dictate to us. That's what the founding fathers meant in this statement. So we hold these truths to be self-evident. It's self-evident. It doesn't have to be explained. It doesn't have to be written in law. It doesn't have to be presented in some sort of form, fashion, or another. It's self-evident. Every human being on the planet knows that it's self-evident. What's self-evident? That all men are created equal and that they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. So we're created equal by a creator God, and we're endowed by those rights from the creator God. Not from government, but from God. It continues. It said that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Among these are like when the disclaimer says these things but not limited to, right? So among these are life, liberty, pursuit, but there's others that are self-evident. That among these, so they're self-evident, they're created by the creator and given to us by him, guaranteed by him. So it's not just life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, it's other self-evident rights. What are those other ones? Well, we'll cover that in a minute. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So why do we have governments? To secure these rights, to protect the rights that were given to us by God, not by government. Because if they're given to us by government, they can be taken away by government. But if they're given to us by God, they can't be taken away by government because God is a higher authority. Whatever God you call on. So to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. What happens if we don't consent? Well, the American Revolution happens. That's what happened. So, what are the rights that are guaranteed to us in the Constitution? No, they're not. They're none guaranteed to us in the Constitution. They're guaranteed us as self-evident by a creator God. So what does the Constitution say about it? Well, we have what's called the Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights do not create rights. Listen to the wording. The First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Oh, separation of church and state right there. Nope, that's not what it says. Read it again. Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of a religion. So Congress can't establish a national religion. That's what that says. You have an inalienable right given to us by God to worship your God in whatever form or fashion you see fit, or not. Or prohibit the free exercise thereof. See, they always say, well, government can't establish religion. Yes, but it can't prohibit the free exercise thereof either, because government doesn't give us the right to worship God or not worship God. That right comes from God. And government can't make a law either establishing or prohibiting it at all, period. End of statement. Or abridging the freedom of speech. So that means there's a semicolon there. So Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or so Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. So you can't make a law that, like Facebook does, because our right to speech, our right to say what we think, most importantly, our right to think what we think, is guaranteed by God in the Declaration. It states it right there. Those are among these. Those are among these. Religion, thought are among these. So let's keep going, see what it says. Or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. What I'm doing right now is guaranteed by our Creator God and enumerated in the Constitution. Freedom of press. Am I a credentialed press person? Well, who makes the credentials? Endowed by our Creator. There are no credentials to be the press, to be, so to speak, a pamphleteer. like our founding fathers, like Thomas Paine, like Benjamin Franklin, who printed pamphlets and passed them out. And then they went viral because people would pass them from one person to another, igniting the flame of revolution in the continent. Freedom of press. The right of the people to peaceably assemble. So Congress shall make no law for the right to people against the right to people to peaceably assemble. So that means you can gather wherever you want to gather, with or without a mask on. Just saying. You could go to church on Sunday just like you can go to Walmart. You see, that your right to peacefully assemble is not granted by the Constitution. It's granted in among these by the Creator. That's among these. Your right to assemble. Your right to go on the 6th and join with the crowds that are going to be protesting or cheering or whatever they're going to be doing on the mall in D.C. You have that right. And to petition the government for redress of grievances. So you have a right to go to the people that you've hired to represent you and say, you ain't doing it right. Among these. These are the among these. Okay? You do not get your rights from the government. They don't grant you your rights. See, we have these politicians that are always talking about rights. We got the right to free health care. We got the right to housing. We got the right to have our college paid for. But those aren't rights. You see, in order to give you free health care, someone else has to go to work for free, and someone else has to pay for that health care. So you are, to follow this, in order to get free health care, you're abridging somebody else's freedom of speech. You're abridging somebody else's peacefully assemble. You're abridging somebody else's, we can go to some of the other amendments, which we're not going to cover. You're abridging somebody else's, wrong one. You're abridging somebody else's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness because they have to give up their liberty and their pursuit of happiness to provide you with free health care with no return of reward for themselves. Same thing with college. Why is it I should have to pay with my taxes for your college when I chose not to go? And I suffer the consequences of choosing not to go, just like you suffer the consequences of going. Maybe you're in massive debt. That's a consequence of going to college. I'm not in massive debt. So that's a consequence of not going to college. Maybe you make 7 figures or 6 figures or high 5 figures. Maybe I don't. That's a consequence of not going to college. Those are choices. I'm enabled to make my choice because I have the right granted by God to make that choice. And government cannot interfere with that, but they want to. Here's another one. I'll step on some people's toes. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. So what does that mean? That means a well-regulated militia. What does the word regulated mean? You know, regulated today means some bureaucrat created a rule and put in place a standard or put in place a restriction or a license or something like that. That's what we think regulation means. When this was written, that's not what regulated means. A well-regulated militia was a well-prepared militia. The old word for regulated was prepared, equipped. So that why? A well-prepared militia being necessary for the security of a free state. We need to make sure people are armed, that they know how to use their arms, that they have a sufficient amount of arms, that they can defend this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Notice there's a comma there, not a period. Militia, comma. So that's a continuation of the thought. There's another comma. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What right? Where does the right come from? Does it come from government? No, it doesn't. It comes from these truths that are self-evident, and among these, you see, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is among the right to keep and bear arms, among the right for self-defense by any means necessary if you have to defend yourself from whomever you have to defend yourself from. Oh, they would never have done that. They didn't conceive of us having machine guns. No, they conceived of us having the highest, most efficient weapon of the day, which was a rifle. Back during the Revolutionary War, the Kentucky Riflemen were the most devastating combat people we had. The Americans were able to take, the sharpshooters were able to take the Kentucky rifle, and they were able to shoot their officers from a great distance long before they could have any effect on us. That's part of the reason why we won the American War. The British was like, this is against warfare. We don't shoot officers. Officers are a protected class. And that's the way I always fought in Europe. But in America, we said, wait a second, but we're endowed by our Creator with stuff that's self-evident, that anybody can see and understand, that we have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that is among these other things like Kentucky rifles. That was the pinnacle of weaponry in the day. That and cannons. And we had those too. See, but if you apply that standard, if you say, well, government can regulate that because that's not what they meant, then our rights are no longer self-evident or from the Creator, they're from government, and government can take away, if they could take away your right that was granted by God for self-defense, then they can take away your right that was granted by God for freedom of speech or freedom of religion. Then they can take away your right for Fifth Amendment rights that are granted by God and only enumerated in the Fifth Amendment or the Fourth Amendment or the Third Amendment or any of the others. We no longer have any rights if government can take one right. And see, by taking the produce of another, whether it's a doctor or whether it's a carpenter who builds a house or whether it's taxes, anything, by taking the produce, the production of another and giving it to someone else, they are limiting their rights that are granted by God, that are self-evident and are among these. Government is not the arbiter of what is right and what is just. Government is just set up to secure these rights. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. Who's the governed? Us. We consent. That applies anywhere in the world. A dictator, Adolf Hitler, kings and monarchs. If everybody in Germany rose up at the same time and stormed the chancellery and grabbed Adolf Hitler by the coat and dragged him out in the street and hung him upside down by his feet, that had been the end of that. There's more of us than there are of them. That's what they're talking about. The only reason Adolf Hitler was able to do what he did is because of the consent of the governed. Either by consent or by not consenting at all. Back to this. Each state shall appoint in a manner as the legislator thereof may direct the number of electors equal to the whole part of the number of senators. It's legislature, to make sure I get that right. Number of senators, representatives, to which the state may be entitled in Congress. This is important because our founding fathers were genius. They took this simple little part of this right here. They took it out. They took selecting our president away from Congress, away from the Senate, away from the executive branch, away from the courts, away from the state governing bodies, not the legislature, but the governors and the bureaucrats and everybody else. In fact, the people weren't even involved when they did this. That's right. They gave it to the legislature of the several states. And the reason behind that is because I know who my state legislature is. His name's Brad. I see him around town. You see, your state legislature is closer to the pitchforks. I remember watching C-SPAN when I was in the Army years and years ago. And they had, at that time, they used to play the House floor when there was nobody in the Congress, and the guy would come up for their 3-minute speeches. And some congressman with a Southern accent, I don't know who he was or where he's from, was saying, we need to do something about the guns in this country. We need to do something about the guns. Because when I go to my hometown, I'm scared to walk down the street because of something I might decide in Congress. My friends, that's exactly right. That's exactly what our founding fathers wanted our Congress people, our senators, our presidents at the state level and at the federal level to think about when they were ruling, that if they make a decision that goes counter to what the people that put them in that office in, those people might get pissed off. And they might do something harsh. Because we're a country founded on revolution. We're a country with self-evident, inalienable rights that are among these. Not limited to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but among these. In other words, we have self-evident God-given rights, that some of which are enumerated in the Constitution, like the right to keep and bear arms, because it says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That means you can't touch it at all. You mean to tell me you'd be okay if people owned the Sherman tank? Hell yeah, I'd like to own one. You mean to tell me you'd be okay if people owned a machine gun? You know, they used to. You used to be able to buy a machine gun until they changed the laws and infringed upon your rights. Your rights that are granted by God, not by them. Think about it. If they can say that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed is limited to a certain kind of weapon infringing upon your rights to keep and bear arms, whether that weapon is a musket, a pistol, a revolver, or a 10-round magazine, then they can say the right to peacefully assemble except over here. And to petition the government for redress except for in this case. Or the press as long as it agrees with us. And you have the right to freedom of speech as long as that speech is okay with us. You see, if they can limit the Constitution, they can limit your inalienable rights in one place, they can limit your inalienable rights in other places. That's why they gave this authority to pick the President of the United States to the legislatures. Is so that the people can use their rights to express their satisfaction or dissatisfaction with their legislatures at a local level. These were the people who were closest to the pitchforks, and if they made a decision, they would suffer the consequences, which in our country, thank God, is through elections. Understand that 74 plus, I believe closer to 80 million people voted for the President of the United States of America. And we are all sitting on our hands right now. Why, you ask? Why haven't we risen up? Why haven't we grabbed our guns? Most of us are armed and stormed the Capitol. Because we love our country, love our Constitution, and we're hoping that there is a remedy to this fraud that has been brought upon this country in a peaceful manner, following the Constitution that we love so dearly, using the rights that were given to us by our Creator that are self-evident, and the liberties that are among these. But if that fails, the second part of that right there when it says that, I didn't copy this one, maybe I should have, I didn't know I was going to go here, that whenever any form of government, how's it say? Somebody can put it in there. I don't want to misquote it. Any form of government becomes destructive to those ends or something, meaning that, I don't know how they worded it exactly. It's our right to rise up. It's our rise up and remove that government, which is what they did in the beginning. The folks that wrote this, that's exactly what they did. They rose up and removed their government that was infringing upon their God-given inalienable rights, that among these, those among the rights, they were infringing upon those rights, and they rose up. I am not asking 80 million Americans to rise up yet. But at some point, if the government doesn't get under control and return back to a government of the people, by the people, for the people, I fear we will have no choice. This is not the government of the CCP. And I fear that the government of the CCP has made a miscalculation of the American people and who we are. One of the greatest war commander, generals, admirals, whatever he was, in all of time was Yamamoto in Japan. He was educated in America. And he said that attacking America would be a big, grave mistake because there would be a gun behind every blade of grass. The CCP has determined that also and decided to infiltrate our government through different means. But it still applies. I don't have all the answers, but I know that I know that I know that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. All men, everybody. Or as Joe Biden would say, all men and women are created, you know the thing. That they are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, meaning they cannot be reversed. They are granted by God. Inalienable. Government does not have the authority that among these, which includes all the others, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That securities rights these governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You see, before consent of the governed, it was considered that the kings were put there by God. That's where they got their authority. Our founding fathers disagreed with that. They got their authority because the people wouldn't rise up against them. Our founding fathers were brilliant by giving the legislator the power to determine whether or not determine who the electors will be. The legislatures have passed that authority on to governors and on to secretaries of state. But it is still their authority, and they can still rein it in. Constitutionally, they can say, no, these electors are invalid because they weren't properly seated. And we, as the head authority granted by the Constitution, granted by God, reel in those electors. That's what happened in Pennsylvania. We declared these invalid because of the fraud that's been proven. It's also going to happen in Georgia and Arizona and New Mexico, not New Mexico, in Nevada. That's a dyslexic thing, by the way. Ins and ends. Anyways. So if you hear me do that, it's okay. I don't mean it. I apologize in advance. We have the power. We do. Us, me and you. I'm talking to you. Right now, I'm talking to you. We have power. All we have to do is exercise that power. We have forgotten that, negated that. We have given that power back. Get on the phone right now. Call your legislature, your local guy and your federal guy, your congressmen, your senators. Get on the phone right now. Tell them your displeasure. These are not the brightest bulbs in the pack in most cases. These are people who are political animals who spend most of their life walking around with their hands up, begging for some money so they can get reelected. There are some that are, straight up good. We get on the phone and tell them their job's in jeopardy, that their employer is dissatisfied with the work that they are doing. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. Let them know how you really feel. There's a whole lot of different laws and court cases, and I know you internet lawyers are on there right now telling me, oh, no, but in John versus Billington in 1826, I don't care. Because that's not what the Constitution says. That's what some judge said. And this has not been overturned. There has not been an amendment to the Constitution taking the power away from the legislatures. And they can rein that power back in if they choose. So understand that before the 6th, if this happens, if these people who are supposedly Republicans grow a set, understand that's what's coming. I do believe that what the events that have happened over the weekend are part of the process of what God is doing. I do believe that there's a whole bunch of stuff coming. We all know what I'm talking about. I'm not even going to get into that. I just wanted to express. I do this every once in a while. Some of you are new to me and have never seen me do this before, where I break down the Constitution just in layman's terms. I am not educated. I just put it out there. Those are the words. You want to argue with those words, fine, but those are their words. That's what they said. And then you can go read the Federalist Papers where they debated this around and around in circles for their lifetimes. And they talked about all these things. And you can get the idea of what they meant by what they said. And they meant what they said. The only difference is that some of them felt like pursuit of happiness was a little nicer than saying pursuit of property, because that's what the first draft said. My friends, it's up to us. We are the people. We are the masters, not the slaves. And we have a choice to make in the very near future whether or not we will be the masters or the slave, because our country's at a crossroad. It could go one way or the other at this point. They're going to do all kinds of good things for when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get in there. They're going to do all kinds of good things for us. They're going to take care of us. They're going to love us and squeeze us and protect us and call us George. If that's what you want. But a government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take everything you got. Do you remember when the traitor John McCain said in the debates against Barack Obama that this free healthcare will be the most expensive healthcare? Why do I call him a traitor? Because he hated Donald Trump. He was the deciding vote. You remember this? Remember this? Remember that? He was the deciding vote. As he lay there dying of cancer, he was the deciding vote. They work for us. It is time they learn that again. Someone said that $600 can buy a lot of 50-gallon bucket of tar and a couple pounds of feathers. If you're going to D.C., have a good time. I intended on going. My mom's having surgery that day, and I promised to help her out. But I'll be with you in spirit. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's up to us to keep our republic. You guys have a great day. Please share this video. There's so many people that don't understand that it's our Constitution and it's given to us by God. I hope that made sense to y'all. Have a great day. I'll catch y'all later.